This is a completely different look for the Disappearing Nine Patch. And what has determined the way that this looks is the way that the blocks were made when they were first constructed as 9-patch blocks. They were the darling little boy fabric with sharks and crabs and whales and all kinds of cute things like that. Was not cut. If you think about your 9-patch and you think about the way you cut it for a Disappearing 9-patch, the center block is going to be your smallest piece. Your sides, on all 4 sides, the center sides, are going to be cut in half, and your corners are going to be the ones that are never cut. So in this particular setting, I didn't want to cut up the cute little fish and the sharks and the whales and the crabs. So they were my corner blocks. And then I used white in between in my center blocks, center of my rows, and then the aqua as my center block. And so you'll see that this forms a little bit of a pattern. There's a very wonderful, easy pattern called Falling Charms that this looks very similar to, except it has what we call cornerstones. If you wanted to make Falling Charms with cornerstones, that would be a lot of work. This is really, really easy. To get the look that I got when I built this quilt, with the cornerstones and the sashing around each one of the individual print blocks, I had to start with a 9-patch that looked like this. Now if you build this and you want to have variety, you can make different colors in your center square, but you need to keep the sides consistent, either with a very simple blender type fabric or colored charm square that doesn't really compete with your print complements it. And if you do that, then you will be able to do a lot of things with it to get some nice interesting looks. I'll show you a couple of settings that you can do with this. So I can just go ahead and I can move away 2 of my squares that are in the corner and leave these 2 so that the center squares are touching. And then if I turn these, turn it like this, I'm going to get the beginnings of something that kind of looks like our Falling Charms. And remember, when we're doing this, we want to make sure that we don't have seams that we have to match when we're making our rows. So this would be the beginnings of how the quilt would be built. So remember I told you about the L7. Well, it's not exactly working out the same way on this particular one as it did on some of the other ones that I showed you. We have our L here and our 7 here, but this is not anything that is that we can kind of relate to as far as a letter or a number. So what you want to do when you're building this row here is you want to continue on with placing that cornerstone in the same place. So I would put the next one right here, and I would put the next one in the same position as this one here. My cornerstone would be up in this corner. Well, one thing I found when I was building this is I had directional print, but it didn't end up being all going the same way. You would drive yourself crazy if you tried to make it so that they were all going the same direction, because this is pretty random. Now in this row, my blue cornerstones are down here and up here, so my next one is going to look like this. So let's say I took this little critter here and I would put that in this position, and then the next one is going to look like this. And so I would put that cornerstone up in this position. And here we go, we get our 2 blues that are are touching each other again. Now they go this way, and then in your next rows down here, they're going to go the opposite direction. So that would be how you would build them. That's how I built them, so that I would always make sure that those blues would be touching each other whenever I put another square in place. And I did make a mistake when I was sewing it together and got them turned around, so you have to be a little bit careful when you're sewing them together that you lay it out first, and then you I just pin them a little bit and stack them, and follow the pattern as I'm sewing across the row. So the one thing about the 9 patch is the Disappearing 9 patch is the only place you really have to match is right here, where these come together, and that's when you're sewing your rows together, not when you're sewing your individual blocks together. So that really makes it easy, because you have nothing to match in these rows here when you're sewing these blocks together. That makes it really go fast putting them together once you have it laid out the way you want it to be. Now you notice we have our crabs over here. I just picked these out at random. This one is going this way, and this one is going this way. The same with our fish right here. They're kind of swimming upside down. I can't let that bother me, because the way you're building it and using these things, these patches at random, they're going to end up not all going the same direction. If that's something that bothers you, well, I would say chill out about it, because it's really hard to avoid that. Some people do get upset about their fish swimming upside down, but for me, I don't. Here's a way that you can set your Disappearing 9 patch blocks. If you use the setting of the same color center and the white on your sides and your print on your corners, to make it look like a sashed and cornerstoned quilt. This looks like it would be a whole lot of work if you were making it where you would actually be building this sashing and putting the cornerstones in between each one of these 5-inch blocks. But it's really not that hard when you do it this way. You're doing all the work when you're doing the first layout of your first set of charm squares to build your first 9 patch. And you've controlled the scrappiness of this completely. This is about as traditional, I guess I would say, as you can get it. I'm also going to show you how once I've laid my quilt out, how I pick my rows up to take them to the sewing machine to sew them. So what I do is I have 2 pins, and I use one pin to flip over to show that this is the beginning of my block, and I pin it here. And then I put my second pin on the edge of my second block right there. That tells me that the next block is going to be sewed here. So here I've already started my pattern, and then I can just follow along. So then I just pile up my blocks like this, put this on top of it, take it to my sewing machine, and then I can sew them together. And then that way, I also use row markers. Someone made some really nice row markers for me, and I just pin the row marker to the edge of my first block, and then that way I can retain the layout of my quilt. These are the row markers my friend made. They're made out of bobbins for embroidery floss. Oh, you can get probably 30 of them for probably $3 or even less. They have these plastic ones and they have cardboard ones. They work out great because you just mark and then you have a pin in them and then you pin that on the row. And I have 2 sets. She made one of my friends made me 1 set of them, and I found that I had more than 1 quilt in the works that needed row markers, so I made myself a 2nd set.